up. And we are back, and we'll be back for another week of action here at the Late Night with the Borg show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Everybody waiting patiently. Chris, you're the most impatient viewer we have. You're always on time, so God bless you. I appreciate it. As always, we are on the Jackrabbit Illustrated YouTube and the FCS Fans Nation YouTube, as well as the Jackrabbit Illustrated Facebook page. We appreciate each and every one of you joining tonight. As Damien says, let's go. Zach says it's the best time of the year. FCS playoffs. Zach McKinnell, that is, if you end up listening to this on the podcast, the one and only Blue Bloods who joined us last week. Thanks again for that, Zach. But as we go here, thank you to Kubota Dealers of South Dakota for being title sponsor for Jackrabbit Illustrated. We really appreciate everything you do with 9 locations across the great state of South Dakota. They've got everything from tractors to subcontract compact tractors to implements to side-by-sides or anything you may need around your home, ranch, or farm that will get you up and running and take care of any jobs you need getting done. Get yourself into some quality orange equipment today. There's always a Kubota dealer near you with parts, service, and sales to take care of you even after you get the sale, because they don't just kiss you goodbye. So shout out to Kubota Dealers of South Dakota and John Kale. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it. As far as the game goes, Zach, I got to agree with Damien and what you and Matt Zimmer we're talking about. By the way, love seeing you on the Jackrabbit Journal. Trent Singer, love that. It was really
Lounge,
cool.
Yeah. Maybe you could get used to that a little more. Maybe next year, we'll see.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It's exciting seeing you do some more stuff there. So hopefully more in the future.
We'll see. Like I said, still kind of the freelancer part-time soldier of fortune, but I think we're all enjoying that right now. So
yeah, that's awesome. So this game, really, this was, Matt Zim wrote about it. You talked about it. This was the Jackrabbits of old. And I actually was, I don't remember who I was talking to, but I kind of wondered, I was talking to my neighbor, and I kind of wondered if a little bit, because this team looked even in granted competition and everything else, but there was plenty of games early in the year against lower competition than New Hampshire for sure. And granted, SDSU in a home playoff game in the snow, vast majority of the time piss pounds the team they're playing. It's just the way it is. I can only think of 2 snow games, and one of them I don't even think it was really snowing during the game where it was close, and that was the Holy Cross game where they ended up putting away by 3 scores anyways, and the Villanova game with Dallas Goddard and Taryn Christian and everything, where it was just a slog the whole game. Otherwise, the Jacks always pummel teams in the snow.
Let's say Duquesne. I remember Duquesne was the snowiest one. I remember. I think that was 2017, or the only thing I really remember was Mikey Daniel hurdling a guy. Shout out Mikey, wherever you are. Hurdling a guy in the snow. And because I remember that game actually didn't start out snowy, and then it just built up during the game. I was not at the stadium. I don't know where I was, but that's one of the few.
That game was fun.
It's one of the few FCS playoff games that's been here either for SDSU or USD that I've not covered over the last 10, 12, whatever it is years now. So that was, but yeah, I mean, this was a true snow game, and it didn't ever really stop the whole way.
Yeah. And it was so fun, and we'll get back to that, but just because I derailed myself here, which that's something I'm always going to do. But I think I was talking to my neighbor, and I said, I wonder if that stretch without Chase Mason, as painful as it was actually for the betterment of this team, because it forced them to get better on the trenches and figure out what worked and figure out the rotation and moving Nate Adams to center and all these things, even while you're dealing with these injuries, to where now you don't just have Chase Mason. You've got Chase Mason paired with an O-line that is road grading people now and backs that are delivering punishment. The 605 Hogs looked great, but on top of that, Juice, he was untackleable the whole game. He was punishing guys out there. And then you throw Johnson in after him, and Blair and Basinger, and all those guys were running hard and just were not going down with great blocking. Kuntz has been a revelation at tight end. I mean, he has been incredible out there. I think we've unlocked Graham Goring. He made a couple of spectacular catches in this game. And really everything hummed along, and you could not only could you see the improvement in the 605 Hogs and the run game and everything, but you could also see the effect that having Chase Mason back there with how good he is at spinning the ball and going through reads and getting into the open guy and firing into tight windows, and really making these teams have to respect the pass game so they can't just load the box. Really saw the difference there. All in all, I mean, really complete game. Special teams were locked in. First game in quite a while without a special teams.
There was one missed but that was kind of non sequitur at that point. The missed extra point thing was not really a big deal at all.
Yeah. I don't think that's. I kind of forgot that happened actually. Yeah. So I mean, overall, really, really good team win. And I really, really liked. You're missing McShane, who's one of your stud linebackers, and the defense still played really well, getting a couple picks, getting turnovers again, not turning the ball over on offense. You're always going to look better when you're not turning the ball over on offense. I mean, and honestly, that was just a weird ball from Chase. I would not expect him to underthrow like he did to get for that interception to happen. But one thing I did notice from New Hampshire that seemed odd to me was they were having success when they spread out the defense with their formation and then ran up the middle. Their back was hard to take down. I mean, he was breaking a lot of tackles, and they just would go away from it for no reason, just inexplicably try to pass the ball and then end up behind the sticks and then having to pass the ball. I mean, they converted a bunch of 3rd and longs, which going forwards will be concerning because Gilman is 10 times the back that kid is, and that's going to be a problem, and we could talk about that later. But that was probably the only thing that would maybe give me a little bit of concern from this game. But realistically, a performance like this was...
It's still a little tough to tell, though, because all those plays happened when the game was pretty much completely out of reach, too. So... But, I don't want to poo-poo it too much because Lord knows when this team was winning at 7-0, there were some issues that we were like, well, this probably isn't that big of a deal, and then became a bigger deal as time went on. No, I agree. I think, the fascinating thing, and these are some points I brought up in that Jackrabbit Lounge, which, by the way, hit up Sioux Falls Live and Midwest Plus. We got a lot of stuff on there.
Absolutely.
Trent Singer's doing a lot. I'm going to have – I did a one-on-one with Chase Mason that'll be up on Monday, shortly after we got done with the press conference, and pretty good stuff with Chase, and kind of covered the ground of, like, just how much he'd been chomping at the bit to get back out, playing out in this. This was his first ever game in snow. I think that kind of –
That's wild.
I mean, it is, but when you think about it, not really, because the high school season in South Dakota is usually over – mid-November, and they often don't play in snow. And if they do, and if it is snowing, it's usually, by that time they're at the Dakota Dome playing. Now, ironically, Chase's one championship game was at Dana J. Dykhouse Stadium the one year they were renovating the dome, but, it was a decent day. Dan Jackson joking afterwards, and maybe not joking, that Chase is now a better snow quarterback than Austin Sumner. So shout out to Austin. I think he's I can't remember if he's at Jefferson or Brandon Valley as an assistant now, but I'm like, that's Austin did have like 6 touchdowns in the snow, but it was Western Illinois, so I guess maybe, and he did pretty well.
I would like to throw, I think it was Ryan Berry into that conversation as well. There was a game against Illinois State where he threw for like 6 touchdowns and 300 some yards and had an insane game.
I remember I also remember Austin being pretty good in that 2014 USD game at Coughlin Alumni too, tossing a couple of touchdowns as well. But I guess when you do it in the playoffs, you get a little extra credit if you're Chase. So
right.
And when you'd missed about more than a month of play, and you look pretty crisp. I mean, it was intriguing too, because I think the two things that really kind of fascinated me, he missed his first pass of the game, and then I think he didn't miss another one until he threw an interception, midway through the third quarter, which was, kind of just one where he was trying to take a shot for another touchdown. I mean, incredibly accurate again and this was the thing that you kind of worry about in a situation like that, where he's, and now I'll say this too. I kind of wondered, and they've all kind of denied it to this point, but I wondered if if he's going to come back at all, could you really, assuming they were going to win this game, and I think they probably could have, I'd like to think they could have won this game if Jack Henry had played. But then again, we've seen this team lose. Then again, we've seen this team lose to Indiana State, so you can't really assume anything after that point. But my thing was, can you really go to Missoula, Montana, and put Chase in that game if he hasn't had any reps, live game reps?
Right.
And Dan said no. We would go with him. Because he's Chase Mason, he's the best quarterback in the. I don't remember if he said he's the best quarterback in the FCS. I think the other coach actually did say, the other coach was saying he is a first round draft pick, and
right.
The other coach works with Max Brosmer.
And their coach, I mean, he played professional ball in the Canadian Football League. Yeah. He was a hell of a FCS quarterback at New Hampshire, so he has the background to trust. He has
street cred. But, I mean, they both – the point is they both to an extent denied that. But, boy, I think even if that's true, I still think you feel much more comfortable going into Missoula and going into that grinder now that he's played. And not only that, he played well. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing New Hampshire, Indiana State, NDSU. I think you want to get him some kind of reps going into that game, just going into Missoula. And I know he played at Montana. And I think the fact they played at Montana State earlier this year for a younger team that's never been to Washington Grizzlies, I think that's going to help them too. That all those guys had that experience in Bozeman. Yeah. I know Grizzly and Cat fans are going to go back and forth. Well, our stadium's different. Big crowds are big crowds, and Bozeman Bobcat Stadium's gotten a lot more intimidating now with the way they've added on to that. So. I think that'll be a big thing. I think I kind of asked him about that in the one-on-one. I think he'll, so I'll tease that for Monday. But I think the other thing that was really interesting too, and I brought this up several times, you go back to when they were playing the first 7 games in that 7-0 stretch. And this will be maybe another theme when we talk about how complete this game was. There were games where Chase would kind of lock in on maybe one guy, or you'd only see one dude do something. And I will say to that guy's point, I do know a guy who's in Missoula, and he says no one is overly happy right now with this matchup. So, we'll see. I mean, I've said this a few times. There's 2 places in the history of this program that have been the boogeyman in the playoffs. One is up north in Fargo. The other is out west in Missoula. Mm-hmm. And you could maybe make an argument that which one's worse, because they both have been the houses of horror. Relatively speaking, they've just been
arguably
one of them fewer.
The most of the matchups in Missoula were not playoff games, but I mean historically, if you go back and you're counting the total, they've only been to Missoula.
Well, in the Division 1 era, though, they've only been there 3 times, but 2 of them are playoffs.
Yeah, 2 of them were the playoffs. You've been to Fargo 5-6 times in the playoffs. So, but I would argue the there's worse losses in Missoula. The
2009 game gives I still think gives everybody on that team nightmares.
We had a similar factor or a similar game or upset or comeback, whatever you want to call it, happened this week for Yale and Youngstown State, which we'll get to.
And Yale is the visiting team,
right? I want to get this a little bit quick here.
I'll finish my last point because I got sidetracked. But we would see maybe Chase lock in on one guy. It was, you think in Montana State, it was Ogroski with the 10 catches, whatever he had in that game. I think there was another game that Bullock had a bunch of. He spread the ball around really well there. I think it was like 6 different guys. Yep. And there were guys he was throwing to that he didn't even throw to in the early when he was first playing. I'm basically splitting this into halves. His first half of the season and now however long this half goes. he wasn't throwing to Jack Smith. They were barely using him when Chase played, when Chase was healthy. Coons, who I think, by the way, looks really good. I mean, they're going to be able to use him next year because he was able to redshirt. Coons made some terrific plays, and he looked really good. I mean, he's throwing to guys he was not throwing to the first time, and they don't have Ogroski. I mean, I'm sure people will ask about, well, is he going to come back? I mean, I think that would probably be maybe if they made Nashville, because something could happen there. But
right,
to me, that was maybe one of the things you could have knocked them on when he was healthy, is like he maybe locks in on one guy too much. They don't spread the ball. Well, lo and behold, they spread the ball around really effectively today. And I think that was I think, and Kuntz, to me, that's what have we talked about at times this year? They need tight end production. They're starting to get some. I mean, Grayton Gannon had that big catch last week during that trick play with UND. He had a grab today too. That was decent. I mean, there's some things that are starting that we didn't necessarily see even when this team was quote unquote full strength, that are starting to maybe even lock into place a little bit. And they're still not full strength. There are still parts of it. I mean, I'm seeing somebody say rumors. There's a lot of rumors. So let's just, bag that. I mean, if this team if Reese Kirschman would be a game changer if they hadn't lost him.
So to be fair, 2 weeks ago, I think it was now, when Dan Jackson was getting interviewed with John Gaskins, Gaskins asked him about Ogroski and Chase Van Tol, and he said it's safe to assume those guys are out for the season. And Dan said, well, we keep winning games in the playoffs and they'll be back.
And that's kind of why
it wasn't they might be back, it's they will be back.
Yeah, so. I mean, I think certainly I think if they made a run to Nashville, they'd be you would there's a really good chance you'd see them back. I mean, that'd be January 5th, but and Dan's the kind of, I think he's going to play those cards close to the vest. And, everybody was kind of laughing at him for, you're not going to really bring Chase Mason back. And I saw some of the idiot NDSU trolls were like, he's just going to sit out because he's going to go get NIL money. Yeah, sure. Whatever. He doesn't want to play. Sure. Yeah. Good call there, dorks. But, I think, Chad's asking, I'll get to some of that later. But I think that it was very fascinating to me how well they spread the ball around. And again, the other thing I thought with Chase, you go back to when we started the season, people were like, well, how this guy's just a running quarterback. How well can he really pass the football? Well, they didn't run him a whole lot today. I think probably for obvious reasons. We still don't know what the status of that foot is or whatever that foot injury was. We'll see if they have to run him more now against a team that'll probably have a better pass rush in Montana, but I think he kind of dispelled that notion that he's just a running quarterback and he can't maybe pass it. He showed a lot, I think, on tape today as a passer.
And I don't know how people, like, if you're watching him the first part of the season, like actually watching him play, they didn't run him that much in the beginning of the season anyways. Like, they'd run him in short yardage, but that wasn't like a bread and butter. It was because they struggled in short yardage, but they weren't running him all that often. We were talking about how much they must be saving his legs for the NDSU game. Maybe they pull Taryn Christian again, the marker game, and run him a bunch there, and then he gets hurt. And suddenly this mantra went back to like, he's a running quarterback, and it's like, okay. All right. We forgot about the first 7 games. Sure. Why not? I want to get to this quick here. Dan Furman said it was obvious the team had much more swag this game for the first time in a month and a half. I would argue that it was 50% swag, because I think the marker game really sucked the confidence out of this team, like big time. So that was huge. But also, I think they finally played free. I feel like as they went through, and then you lose the Indiana State, and then you lose as the more games they lost, the tighter they got, because they talked about it in interviews, the guys did, about the weight of upholding the tradition of making the playoffs, and the weight of looking up when you walk in there in the semifinals and the national titles and the playoff appearances are all up on the Dana, facade there, up on the big side, on the home side. And you see that every time they come out, and the weight of that on their shoulders being lifted. They all talked about it. And so this team, when you watched them, they were having fun. Like they were having fun with jumping in the snow and the first touchdown doing a snow angel in the end zone. And, this team was out having fun, and that's as much swag as it is just going out and playing football. And I think that has a huge impact just on how well they play. I think that can't be underrated. And somebody else earlier, and I apologize, I don't remember where your comment was, brought up Kuhn's blocking and how much of a difference maker that's been. I hope the rest of the tight ends are really using him as a role model, because that guy, I mean, having not gotten to see him all year until the last couple of games, he is a very good tight end.
Like I said, they get him for another year because they can redshirt him, and unlimited in the playoffs. That doesn't affect it. And, I think the other thing that maybe made this whole thing play looser, along with the fact that obviously they got off the schneid last week, and to be fair, obviously New Hampshire is not. I mean, this was a bubble team that maybe a lot of people didn't even have in the bracket to begin with. It was going to be either them or UND out, and it turned out both got in. And I think we can fairly safely say UND belonged in after they dismantled Tennessee Tech.
Okay,
maybe I don't know.
I understand the logic behind. A lot of people use that logic after results are done, and I understand it and I get it. Personally, I don't.
At the very least, it's probably
that your performance
wasn't rated. There wasn't a top 8 seed.
Well, people forget, everybody's talking, UND destroyed them. That was a very tight game until late.
Yeah,
that was true. This was, you look at the score and everybody's going, oh, this was a destruction. That was a tight game all the way in late into the third, early fourth. I haven't got to watch it. I've got it because thank you, almighty brain trusts at the NCAA, where you have 8 games of marketable material to draw people to your subscription service, and in all of your infinite wisdom, because there's no TV windows, you could have put them all and staggered them, and instead you put them all in one time slot, and you're going to follow that up with more wisdom of having them go and do it again the next week with only one game being played at a different time and every other game being played in 2 hours. So no, I have not gotten to watch these games, but I was able to watch because I was at the Jacks game, but was able to watch how things have gone along, caught up on how, Sam Herder and Zach McKinnell and Tim Rosario and Timothy Rosario. Sorry. I want Mama Rosario mad at me. But all those guys talking about the game and Kevin Marshall and everything as they were going along, you can get an idea at least of what was happening. And that UND game was not some utter destruction from the start,
I will say though, when you turn the ball over 6 times, that's a little bit jarring, but
and and now they're down their starting quarterback. He got hurt.
Yeah, that's true. True as well.
Game. Yeah.
True as well. I mean, but I think just the weight of, obviously the win last week, and who knows, SDSU might have still made the. As we saw, UND was comfortably in the field. They, since we did our bracketology special, last week we kind of thought they were still going to get in just because of the way the bubble had shaken out elsewhere. But we thought it might be a little closer. We thought it might be they might be a last 4 in. They were comfortably in. They weren't even in the last 4. They were they were probably like 5th or 6th, whatever you want to call it that. But I think maybe SDSU might have made the playoffs last week if they had lost that game. But who knows what things would have looked like today if they come in on a 5-game losing streak. So
I don't think they get in on a 5-game losing streak. I just don't.
Well, it's nice not to have to.
Yes.
So it's nice to have that as a hypothetical and not be, real worlding that. But I think the main thing, other than the fact they had won that game and they can't, obviously you got your quarterback back, they really embraced the snow game, the atmosphere today. I was standing next to Chase. I was taking a lot of video of Chase today, obviously, as he's warming up because again, obviously, for those who aren't aware, you mentioned some of the ESPN things. ESPN takes full control of the playoffs. We're not allowed to shoot our own video. There's only I think like the schools are allowed to shoot their own, but that's about it. It's all we can do. Although technically I'm not TV. I think I took my own video on the cell phone. So, I'm not airing that anywhere. I could probably cheat a little bit now that I'm not on TV technically, as long as I don't put it on the Sioux Falls Live or Midwest Plus website. But point being, normally you just shoot pre-game, post-game, video as they're walking off. I shot them singing the fight song and all that. And some sideline video, like sideline fans. And, of course, I snap a lot of stills. Got you in there as well. So,
hey.
Yeah. But, I remember Chase, I was standing next to him as they were doing like their high five line. They're going through to go stretch. And he's like, this is the basically verbatim, although he did include a naughty word. This is the shit movies are made from, They really embraced having the snow game. You talk about Coons, he's the guy who came from Sac State. I mean, that's how often did that guy you talk about Chase never playing in snow. How often did a guy from California probably ever even seen snow? So I think that was another factor that, as much as you think, obviously we'll get into some of the other playoff games. I'm sure we'll get in the one down south in Vermilion. There's two. I know you love you love the outdoor games. I'm a fan of the outdoor games. I like a snow game. I was out there a lot. Zimmer was out there a lot. Trent was out there a lot. And I don't discount anybody who likes the indoor games either. I mean, when I was in Fargo, let's just say a December outdoor game would be a little bit harder than one in Brookings or in Grand Forks. It might be a little colder, but they really embrace the atmosphere and the fans who were there. I'm not going to beat. I saw some rage baiting Twitter, Reddit thing about look, and I don't want to get in the attendance in Vermilion. It's beating a dead horse. The attendance in round one is never going to be a sellout anywhere. Yeah. It's going to be lower, until you get to a semifinal, and it's usually got to be in like a Montana State, or maybe Fargo. Until you get to the semifinal, no one's probably going to sell their building out. It's going to be lower, especially on Thanksgiving weekend. And by the way, the weather, I've been back and forth with a few fans. Driving conditions were not necessarily great, depending on how far away you were coming. Again, we're talking about SDSU. They're not based in the major population center. Sioux Falls is close. And I add that for you, and I add this for USD as well. The fact you had nearly 4,000 people at both those games, with the weather, with everything going on, I think that was fine by me. To have that with the way the roads were and the way the snow was blowing around, that was a fine crowd. That was a fine crowd by me. And you got the diehards today too.
Right. And when it comes to the weather and, the team embracing it, there's a difference between truly embracing it and trying to convince yourself to embrace it. And it goes for the same thing as being from a fan standpoint. And that is something I'll say till the day I die. You have your state championships in a dome. Most of your fans, their NFL teams in a dome around here. It's just a culture thing that has to be changed. And until it is, it won't. I get a lot of people and I get it. And like Chad says, but let's not give excuses. Fans need to show up. Yeah. The program and the team deserves to have people show up. If you're going to have the audacity to throw a tantrum online when the team's losing, your ass should be in the seats. So that's my opinion. I'm not going to beat the dead horse because guess what? I have a blast at those games, whether someone else is there or not. If it was just me and Chad in the stands, I would have a blast. I don't care. We would be the noisiest two people you've ever seen in your lives. And we'd probably bring a boombox with us just to be extra obnoxious. But my point being is, we heard for the longest time, before the sellouts and the national title and everything and struggled for attendance in a bunch of games. And you really only sold out like Hobo Day and the marker game and everything else. It was, it's soccer or my kid has this, or it's this season or it's that season or whatever. And then all of a sudden start selling out after a national title. And then later games, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. Well, NDSU game shows up and it sells out and it's not NDSU fans filling the stadium. So in the end, it just, if it's either a priority enough for you to go or it's not. And I can't make that decision for you. In Thanksgiving weekend of all weekends is the number one weekend. I will never complain about what the attendance is. because like you said, I don't care where it is. Thanksgiving weekend attendance is always terrible. And to be honest, it's going to be extra terrible when your fan base has been used to the last 8 to 10 years having a bye that weekend. Like I was not the least bit surprised with the attendance and what it was. And it is what it is at this point. Eventually, I do believe eventually that will change. It's getting that culture changed and getting more and more people into it. Honestly, the reality is it's getting wives and families into it, because like you look at our group that we go with, everybody's wives go to all the regular season games, but then they don't go to the playoffs. Except for my wife. She goes to the playoffs. She couldn't go today with, 1.5-year-old in the conditions, but it is what it is. Yeah. And that's part of it.
I'll add, I would not have endorsed my kid and my wife to go in that weather. I mean, and I think they did go to Montana. They might have gone I think they did go to Montana State now a couple of years ago, but that was a semifinal to go to the net. I don't even know if they went. I can't even remember if they went to that one too, because I think my son was only 2 years old at that point. So, that's the thing. When we talk about conditions for people to go, it's like, okay, diehards are going to go because diehards are going to die hard. Hopefully not literally. But weather like this, like if I'm a family, if you got younger, you got practically a baby, literally. I mean, I'm like,
right.
I wouldn't stick my son out in the weather like this today. I mean, he's, I don't want to have to be dealing with him having a cold or a pneumonia or something on Monday. Now,
whoever this random user is that says under 4K is D2 attendance, that's fine. We've got D1 national.
Well, the highest attendance today.
I don't care.
The highest attendance today in all of the playoffs, I think, was 45, 48, maybe at Youngstown.
Right.
So I don't.
Let's not get mired in this, because then you just
stupid.
bring out the trolls and whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not going to give them.
It's being a dead horse. We all know the issues that there's different communities. Some communities are in a town of 250,000, others are 19 or 11,000, like Brookings and Vermilion. So it's just you have if you're not willing to put context into it, get out of town.
Yeah, I will say, Garrett says, I saw a lot of elderly couples at the game talk about diehards. We got invited up to a suite in the second half.
That.
Yeah, so that was pretty
nice.
fun. And we went and sat out. I still had to sit outside for at least the quarter. So we sat outside for the third quarter, Chad and I. We were joined by an older woman in, her 60s or 70s. And you could tell she had been out there all game. She had her seat that the snow was brushed off of that she made sure to sit on. It was fantastic. God, shout out to her. She was awesome.
And I know, because you saw me doing this, and Chad mentioned it way back earlier in the chat. Did talk to Stig, who was there. Did an interview with him. And I can tell you the story. It is for I've teased this before. I've still been working on it. I kind of had to put it on the back burner because I've had a few other things going on. The Little Brown Jug story is still being worked on, and he had some interesting comments about it. I can tell the USD fans he still does not have it, but in summary, if they were to do a trophy, he wants it to be the Little Brown Jug. So,
I'm sure.
Let's just say the USD fans might be a little shocked at how passionate he would be to have the Little Brown Jug.
Bastard.
Let's just say I think the USD people would be a little shocked at how passionate John would be to have the Little Brown Jug be the trophy if they have. And I think he wants a trophy, period, because he just likes trophy games. He thinks it's part of the pageantry and fun of college football. So it would be. It's still something I'm working on. I've kind of put it on the back burner. It's what's starting to become the story is where the hell is the gosh damn thing, because nobody really knows, but hopefully we'll find it. And I tell you what, it would be I kind of have an idea of when I'm planning on it, and maybe the Lord works in mysterious ways, because a good time to potentially air this might be 2 weeks if we get a quarterfinal first ever playoff meeting between SC. I'm just trying to manifest this into existence, maybe a good time to air this story would be right in the lead up to the first ever playoff meeting between SDSU and USD. I'm just throwing that out there. We'll see.
I don't think it happens, but
I know you're not as thrilled about that, or you don't believe it, but I like to manifest.
It's fine. It's fine. Honestly, I wouldn't be like upset if it happens. Because the way this team is playing, USD doesn't want the smoke. I'm telling you right now. USD wants none of this smoke. This team was not even playing
it's a different team, obviously, with Chase Mason. So it is, but I mean, I think it's interesting.
If I'm USD, that's a nightmare scenario because we've seen that happen before.
I mean, again, considering where both teams have been during this season, I think both of them are probably like whatever if they're in the quarterfinals, considering where they both were at points where you're like they're not even going to be in. You roll the dice and see what you do, but I think it'll be we'll see what happens. I think SDSU has somebody. I think I saw a Bison fan mention this online. SDSU could have a bit of the reverse. Has a very similar path to the one we saw NDSU have.
Matt Frazee brought that up.
I mean,
FCS Fans Nation.
It would be almost kind of reversed because obviously the Bison went out to Montana State. They got that blocked extra point to beat the Bobcats. Then they go back to Vermilion, avenge a regular season loss. Now that was in Fargo. Avenge a regular season loss to USD in the quarterfinal. Go to Montana and lose an overtime game. Obviously, this time around, it would be flipped around. It'd be the Jackrabbits going to Montana. Potentially, obviously, USD still has to go win down in Macon. Potentially, they have to go back and avenge a loss to USD, and then they would get Montana State if things rolled that way. So, and I think we'll see. I mean, I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse. I think they have the better of the two matchups because obviously Washington Grizzly is a tougher animal, but you're also going down south. I mean, I don't want to, especially after last week, I really don't want to. I had so much fun with the guys with our.
Well, I'll tell you this: Mercer is better than anyone.
Yeah.
Mercer. I would say in talent is comparable to the Furman team that went out to Montana and gave Montana everything that it could handle and then some. What was it, 2-3 years ago? And they probably should have been a higher seed, but they dropped a stupid game. That sounds familiar, Mercer. But Mercer did it earlier in the year. Except this will be at home for the SoCon team.
I mean, they don't usually get this opportunity. They don't always get this opportunity that often right away.
Right.
And it is, I mean, somebody mentioned the dome. He mentions the dome thing. It's like the other half of it is it's just such a unique. I mean, how often? I mean, obviously they went down the south this year to Lamar, and obviously that didn't exactly go so well for USD. But how often? When's the last time they went down to like Georgia? Ever? I mean, this is. I don't know if they've gone this far east before in USD. So I mean, God, I don't know when the last time South Dakota State has. I mean, it would be Villanova, I'm guessing, but it's just a different.
That they went south or just east.
Well, both south.
The last time they were
Georgia
south,
Southern would probably be the one I'm guessing would be
Kennesaw State.
And Kennesaw State too.
Kennesaw State was the most recent one.
I mean, I remember that Kennesaw State game. It was super rainy. It's just going to be interesting because you go into a whole different vibe, whole different climate. I mean, hopefully it's warmer for them. I would assume it's going to be warmer, but you could maybe get a rain game like we saw a couple of years ago in Kennesaw. And I've seen that. I did see that because a couple of years ago when Mercer came here and this is going to be a completely different Mercer team because the Mercer team that came here in 2023 was still very much building their program. And obviously that was the SDSU team that was generational and nobody was beating them regardless. I mean, but they play in it's a very cool looking stadium, very cool looking vibe. Obviously Washington Grizzly is a good place and it's a great vibe. Nothing against that, but it's definitely a trip I'd kind of like to see SDSU make someday if they could, just to go see a different part of the country and play in a different, playing that Southern vibe, the Southern culture. But, obviously there just haven't been a whole lot of opportunities for SoCon crossover games for whatever reason. We won't say why or if they are afraid of it. I don't want to get Kevin going about that, but, So
Well,
it is.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
In a second, I want to do a quick
shout-outs.
sponsor read here really quick for Dreamers Do Travel, and I'm actually going to go here, and I'm just going to share the page because we talk about Amy Dix and Dreamers Do Travel, but never really shown anyone how to get there. I talk about it, so let's show you. You go to dreamersdotravels.com. You can go here under About. You go down to our team. Click on that. You'll scroll all the way to the bottom. There she is, Amy Dix, and you've got her information on there and everything, with her favorite destinations and all that jazz. But if you're looking to get yourself into a vacation, Disney destination travel, all-inclusive resort, cruises, hotels, any sort of trip whatsoever, contact Amy Dix at Dreamer Do Travels and get yourself set up with probably cheaper and better setup with none of the stress or hassle of having to set up your vacation yourself. So go to Dreamers Do Travel and talk to Amy Dix. So I wanted to go on there and show everyone where to go. That's www.dreamersdotravels.com. So with that, yeah. So Brian, SoCon sucks. That's why. So I will say this with I understand why the Eastern teams, just Eastern in general, schedule the way they do. Because if you ever look at a map of FCS teams and schools, it is very heavy East Coast. Very heavy East Coast. And if you've got 15 schools within 3 hours of you, why would you fly out to Montana? Or why would you fly out?
They're not easy places to fly to. They're not easy places.
So
yeah,
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying I like it. I still think they should and need to schedule those games, but that's the logic behind it. I get it. And SoCon teams want money. Christopher Howard says, I got news for you, Chris. Everybody
wants money.
Everybody on one-offs, we are paying to come here. SDSU is paying Drake a guarantee when they come. They paid Merrimack a guarantee when they came. We pay them all the time.
And I think the largest they're paying some of their largest guarantees ever now, and it's just going up.
Yeah, so because you have to, because you're SDSU and you're having teams to come out and get pummeled into the dirt.
And I don't want to get into this. I don't want to get into this thing, but I mean it's part of the reason that there's only so many FBS teams out west, because everything is so east and based east of the Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. It's just a population-based thing.
Yeah, it's population-based. There's just not a lot. Yep. And I don't think it was Rinaldi. I don't think they brought Rinaldi to Brookings. I know it was Jeremy Schapp who did the feature. Because I linked it the other day. I linked it in the morning. I saw it at night, and it was funny because we saw a couple of the teams. I saw Tennessee Tech. I think I saw Tarleton. They were tweeting out that trailer on Thanksgiving Day for this chase to the championship thing that they're doing, which is I think is like going to be a week. And I'm like, great. They're finally investing in their product that they've paid for and never give a crap about. But I saw it late on Thanksgiving night, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to save this for when I can tweet it in the morning because, nobody's probably still up at 12 at night, but me, because I'm a DGen. But it was really well done. I know they had been out in Brookings like a week or two prior to the Dakota Marker game, and I figured they were doing stuff for their broadcast of not only for that one, but their broadcast of the USD game as well. I figured,
okay,
yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I'm gonna have to cut. Chad confused the issue here. Now I gotta with paying people. Stealthy Monkey says, so New Hampshire got paid to come here. No, they did not, because Chad said SCSU had to pay to host today. That's different. There's paying for a bye game or a guarantee game in a non-conference game early in the season where you're just paying that school, you pay their travel plus whatever, $60,000, $100,000, whatever it is.
The NCAA handles traveling on this.
Travel is handled in the off season or in the playoffs by the NCAA.
Just like the basketball tournament.
Yep, and you have to put in a minimum bid to guarantee your host. So you say it's $20,000, and then on top of it, the NCAA takes 80% of your gate as well, and they get to run the event. That's why the playoffs are currently not a money-making venture for anybody.
That's why they
Oh,
tinkered with the venture capital thing, I'm sure, as well. But
yes. Yep.
for better and worse.
Yeah. So that money went to the NCAA,
And
not
how
New
much has that
Hampshire.
changed because of the seeding thing, though? Because obviously, when this was
So
pre-seeding, they really relied on people who would put in the big bids, like that's how Montana would buy their way essentially at home, even if they weren't necessarily the better team, because they could always guarantee that we're going to put 20,000 in there.
Yeah, so what happened is now, and that's why it was such a big deal to get them to seed the top 16 teams, because now nobody has to bid extra. Like, you're not having to outbid, you're not having to bid, because it used to be a process where each team submitted a bid and whoever had the highest bid got to host that game. And now there's no reason to do that. You just submit the minimum bid because it's a seed or an unseeded team. And that's kind of how, I mean, hypothetically, if you had two unseeded teams win far enough, it could come back down to a bid process. But let's be honest, that's not very realistic. Yeah. And then the rare chance that happens, it'll probably be whatever team remembered to put a bid in for, the quarters or whenever that would be. However, yeah, UND put in big bids to host, and that was part of the controversy too that pushed this over the top, was when UND had a bid that was 3 times larger than Weber State's, and Weber State got to host anyways, and the committee came for the first time, the not higher bid law won, and the committee came out and said, well, it was so close to them getting in the top 8, we felt they deserved a home game. And everyone went, what? Are you kidding? Yeah. What is that? And so that became a thing. Yeah, so that's the history behind bids, if anyone was unfamiliar, or you're new to the process or anything.
Definitely like the new process of seeding every round.
So much better.
So much more.
The old days, you'd have had,
it was the Wild West, basically.
You'd have
your way in.
They'd have put one of the MVFC schools on the other side of the bracket, and then loaded everybody else into one because of regionality and bus trips and everything. And now it makes it a much more national tournament because, sure, they try to keep it regional with these first round games and the seeds and where they're located, but the seeds kind of make it so you can only do so much of that, and it forces them to send people like New Hampshire out here.
But yeah, no, I mean, getting to that point though, but he was asking about the ESPN thing. Yeah, we'd seen them out here. They were out of practice doing some stuff. And of course I was riding up today with Zimmer on the way to the game. And, I'm like, well, they picked the right media guy in this market to put in that, because they wanted, to their credit, they wanted somebody who was kind of an independent voice who wasn't directly connected. I think he said he did almost an hour of interview for that, for only the 30-second,
right.
Whatever it was, 30, that's the way it goes, I guess. But my understanding was I don't think Shap actually came here. They had a crew, and this is how it goes. I mean, I just did like a 1-camera documentary with the Howard football team at the Dakota Dome. I know how hard that is. But what they'll typically do with a network like that is they'll send a crew and a couple cameras and a producer, and they will do all that. There'll be a producer asking the questions. Then they'll go back to, I'm guessing it's Bristol, because they don't really do much out of LA anymore. They'll go back to Bristol, write the script up, hand it over to Jeremy Schaap or Tom Rinaldi's now actually with Fox, because I saw somebody say Rinaldi was with ESPN when it was game day and when they came here. So that's, you got to get that straight, because obviously he's now with the big noon game day on Fox. But they'll have a crew come out to wherever they're going to. They also did something on the Brawl the Wild game as well. I know they did a Tennessee Tech feature. I think they got more coming. They might do something every week. But they'll have that producer write up the script. The voice talent will voice it. Somebody will edit it all together, and you'll get what you had, which was just really good. I mean, we can bag on ESPN sometimes, but when they do stuff like that, that's when you're reminded of how good ESPN can. And it's not just because it's an SDSU piece. That could have been on, if something like that had happened at NDSU, USD, Tarleton, Tuskegee, that kind of story, you don't have to be a fan of that program to be like, for that to kind of like tug at the heartstrings. And if it doesn't, you're just a you're a moron. I don't know what to say, but it was just really well done. And, obviously, Dan opened up a little bit more in some ways that we hadn't seen about the Nate White situation. Yeah, I mean, it was, it was a tough watch in that regard. But it was a really well done piece. I mean, that's, I full credit to ESPN. I still don't like the way that sometimes they handle this FCS playoff that they hold. And, I really wish they would although not necessarily today. I didn't necessarily mind that I didn't have to stay on the sideline the whole game and shoot, because it was nice to go into the press box every now and then and warm up. But there are exceptions, like this one and the Montana State game a few years ago. It was nice to go in. Much as I do love being out there, I also do love going into warm up because my camera freezes or my phone is down about 5%.
Right, because it's cold.
No, they when they do stuff like that, or a good 30 for 30, or their E60s, I mean, you just can't beat that. I mean, that's where they're at their best, and I really wish they would do more of that instead of the talking head Stephen A. Smith mumbo jumbo, which is what so many young kids think that is now coming up. It's like, no, this is good, straight up journalism, and it was really good. And
I agree with Tunsky here. He says still they should have both teams' main booth teams together to broadcast. I honestly, what I think they should do doesn't even have to be that, if they want impartiality because you're ESPN and national tournament, yada, 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 use those broadcast teams just for other games instead of dragging in. Like, I get it. They've got to have a proving ground somewhere for these young guys they've got working up through the ranks, but send in these guys, have a Stone Labanowitz or you have the Curtis Riggs of the world and have them go do the UND Tennessee Tech game where they're familiar with the teams and they're familiar with the FCS and will know this and will put the effort in and all these things and kind of know the names so they're not stumbling through all these things and everything else. I think that'd be a huge, huge improvement for them. Quickly, I'm going to get to another one of our sponsors, Wooden Leg Brewing. Downtown Brookings, Wooden Leg Brewing has always got their fan cakes before the games. I'm sure they had it today. They've got fantastic microbrews there, craft beers, everything, all that jazz. They've got everything your heart could desire. It's getting to winter time, so they're getting into their heavier stouts and everything like that. So head down to Wooden Leg Brewing, get yourself some fantastic beer. They produced our beer for us, and it was terrific. And of course, we're proud to be partners with the JFP as well. That's been a fantastic thing that we've done.
Please produce more. Please produce more. It was good, and I did not savor that beer enough, and I need more, but it might have been just a one-time deal.
Right. Well, we'll see. Going forward in the future, I know there was potential for, more produced or, different options because they're a small brewery, so their batches are fairly small. But going forward, who knows what'll happen? But hopefully we make more because it was really
that was
really
one
good.
of the best I've ever had. Honestly, I mean, I'm not a huge beer guy, but it was one of the best I've ever had.
Yeah, it was pretty fantastic. They did a great
job.
And
I don't just say that because you gave it to me for free.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Right. So, anyways, let's get on to some results for today.
I did want to make a quick note too because I see some questions about like the broadcast teams, and I can speak a little more because I've had a little more play-by-play experience this year. Granted, I'm on the high school side of it with just doing the Midwest Sports Plus and with Forum, so I'm a little more experienced in this thing, and it's hard because obviously I don't know exactly how they fill their teams. I think one person made a point that you make a point about just doing like just picking up the feeds of the radio broadcast, and that's something I think I've seen before. Where like you look at like some of the professional things, and they do have an option where you can like, hey, like you're listening on Sirius or what, like you can pick up the home team or the road team. I don't know if every FCS team is that obviously SDSU, NDSU, USD, like the really well plugged in ones are. Some of these broadcasts just might not have the connectability. I don't know if they have to go through Learfield and do weird because everybody's basically plugged in with Learfield now. I don't know if that's a hassle they have. But I know that there's a lot of preparation that goes into these games. Usually the week of, like, I had to do more. I mean, I was doing a football show weekly for highlights. As you guys know, I did the Football Friday on Dakota News. And, it was just like, I had to do more prep for one high school game than I did doing a highlight show, of 16. And it's usually you have to call usually for a college broadcast, you're hopefully doing a production meeting at some point in the week with the coaches. But I mean, the baseline is you want to have a spotter chart. Hopefully you get a guide of the names that show like how every name is pronounced, because that's an easy one to have to biff quite a bit. And then inevitably these guys, a lot of them are coming from out of state or somewhere else. And so somebody probably biffs San Diego and South Dakota State.
Always.
At some point. But, they're also guys, the other half of it is, and I'm going to try and be easy on because, and I didn't hear the whole broadcast, obviously. Some of them are coming from places that are
reviews.
Some of them are probably have done multiple games or maybe done games, did a game last night in some other sport, did a game 2 nights ago. So there might just be overload at some point. Like, they're stretching them. Maybe some are getting stretched too far. So I don't know. It's, I'm not going to be too harsh because I've learned myself how much harder it is to call a game than even a year ago than I know. But, you just hope they're taking the time to like go. I think you can tell who's probably taking the time to research and try to take some time. That's my hope, because I'm somebody who would eventually like to call some college games. I'm not going to lie there. I'd love to call SDSU or USD down the road. That would be at some point, that'd be a dream gig for me at one point. But I think you hope they just take that time to talk to the coaches, try to learn the names, and give it, even if they make a mistake, mistakes happen. That's natural. Just take your time. And, I remember, somebody always does the San Diego State that, they don't control the graphics. If somebody messes up the chyron or the logo and it has that's not necessarily their fault. That's some guy back in Bristol, Connecticut who puts the wrong picture in somehow.
Yep.
I don't know how. I still remember the Montana State game, and I've referenced that quite a bit, where somehow I think ESPN had said it's, Montana State and San Diego State, and I walked into the stadium that day. I'm like, take a picture of it being snow-capped, and I'm like, another beautiful day in San Diego.
Right. Right.
Another. This is why we live here. The beautiful San Diego weather of 12 degrees. But yeah, it's, it is a much harder job than even I gave it credit for before I actually did it. And I'm only doing the high school level. I'm not flying all over the country, presumably to 2 or 3 games. I am a little surprised, and I think the one thing I will say to their credit, the one thing I'm surprised with the way they've cut back in the industry, that they're still sending people here. I think that's infinitely better, because in a lot of cases they're doing remotes. So they'll keep people in some studio in Bristol and have them call it from there. I mean, that was the worst. That was the thing they did during the COVID era, but now they've been like, oh, we can see.
They've been doing it for the NHL playoffs.
Oh God, that's worse. That
was horrific.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, we're both hockey guys too, especially in the playoffs. So I'm saying, I think the fact that let's just be glad they're still sending people to these games. Again, you hope they're doing their homework, but at times I'm a little worried that they're just going to start doing remotes because just to save money.
Right. Zach McKinnell says, "Let me and Kevin call the FCS national championship."
Hey, I'd be down for that.
Must-see TV. Man, we get Zach's buttery Southern accent, and then Kevin's just country Southisms. Yeah, his color with hotter than fish grease and redder than the devil's dangler. Oh my God, it'd be gold. That would be an incredible broadcast. Oh my God. Going through, we got Tab asking the question of how does Youngstown?
That's the one we got to talk about. We waited too long.
And you've got Brian Thompson, our good buddy Brian, who loves to troll, but he's a good friend of mine on here. He's mad.
Hey, he uses his real name, actually.
Right. And I don't know how you can blame a guy who was 23 of 35, 3 touchdowns, 317 yards, 17 carries for 90 yards, and another 3 touchdowns. He scored 6 touchdowns and accounted for all but 80 yards of a team that put up almost 500 yards.
That's
And you're blaming the quarterback that they lost. He had, and I would say that makes sense if he had 6 interceptions. He didn't. He had 1.
Yeah,
He had 1 interception. You put up 42 points. That should be enough to win the game. You're up 42-14 in the third quarter. 7:37 left in the third quarter. You are up 42-14, and you piss it away. That is not on the quarterback.
It's just the culture. It's the culture we're in. I mean, we see it in the pros all the time. We see it in the pros all the time. Joe Burrow has no defense. Or, I'm watching that Thanksgiving game the other day. Mahomes throws 4 touchdowns. Somehow it's his fault when the defense can't get off the field on 3rd and 11. I mean, the most meaningless stat in football is quarterback. Now, I can't say this entirely. I hate to say this because we know
quarterback wins.
But quarterback wins. Come on. Football is one of the ultimate team sports. If you don't have a good offensive line, your quarterback's getting buried. If your defense can't stop anything, it don't matter if your quarterback throws for 500 yards. There's just so many. I don't want to completely dismiss it because obviously Gronowski's had an unbelievable career. But, Brungard, there is nothing he did to lose that. I think they had 1 turnover, and I don't think it was on him. I think it was a fumble by somebody else.
Oh, look here.
I believe
it was a lost fumble. Yep, you are right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you cannot say he lost them that game. He's the only reason they had a shot to win that game. They probably get murdered if he's not playing that game.
To be fair, they were given 3 turnovers by Yale.
Yes.
And I will absolutely be rewatching this here. We'll see how the wife lets me get away with it tomorrow, or if I'm gonna have to watch it at night. But this is gonna be something to watch. I'm gonna have to watch this game because you look at the drive charts and everything, and it just makes no sense. And I get it. We got a lot of comments on here that Bo was skipping balls in short hopping his passes in the second half, and
but make a fucking.
But oh my God, run the ball. Make one stop or run the ball. Third quarter, they scored a goal 42-14, and you give up 20, 29, 20, 21 unanswered points. Or no, sorry, more than that. Yeah. You give up even worse. You give up 29 unanswered points in a quarter and less than a half. All
right. So
it's crazy. It had to be 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out.
Yeah. You want to talk about skipping his passes. Okay, so they go down 43-42. And you talk about so he's skipping his passes. So let's run the football. And again,
missed field goal in the fourth quarter. Perhaps that was an issue.
Well, here's one, because when they go down 43-42, Youngstown's complete this comeback. Youngstown gets the ball back with about 2:40 to go. And you want to talk about drive charts? It makes no sense. Okay, so let's say I'm that person who believes, it's on Brungard because he's skipping the passes. Let's take a look at their final drive when they get the ball back down 43-42 with 2:40 to go. And, this is their chance. Okay, momentum's completely against them. They give up the lead, but they have the ball back. They have all their timeouts. Plenty of time to do anything. 1st and 10 at their own 27. Bo Brungard, pass incomplete. 2nd and 10, 27. Bo Brungard, pass incomplete. 3rd and 10, Bo Brungard, pass incomplete. 4th and 10, Bo Brungard, pass incomplete. Are you sensing the theme here? No need to throw 4 passes, not 1 run. If you really want to give me the whole, he's skipping passes, it's his fault. Where the F is your run game? Why are you throwing 4 passes? Your last drive of the game, and you don't run the ball on I get that they're not Pioneer League. They do invest a little more, although to be fair, Pioneer League teams tend to play a little better in the first round anymore. But why are you not running the football on a team that has non-scholarship players? And by the way, you have one of the best running quarterbacks in the subdivision, and you threw 4 passes. It's asinine.
Yeah, it makes no sense, and it's just.
It's just
insane. Like
How much? I mean, yeah, you'll have to give it a.
Everybody panicked. I mean, you've got Zach McKinnell says Yale's running back so good, man. He was unbelievable in the second half. Pitzenberger for Yale had 32 carries, 3 touchdowns, and 209 yards rushing. Like, that boy had a day. When your running back puts up 209 yards rushing and your quarterback throws for 260, I'm not. It's a good thing Youngstown State doesn't have. You can tell Youngstown State isn't spelled with any D's in the name because they didn't have one.
Yeah. Well, I will say the one field goal that got missed was a 46-yarder. So that's not exactly. I mean, professionally, that's nowadays a chip shot, but college, that's not an easy kick at 46. And we don't know what the wind. We don't know what the wind or what how the conditions were when he kicked it. But 46 is not a gimme. So no. I mean,
it's crazy how, insane game. I should have brought on like Zach McKinnell or Sam Herder could have hopped on, who was able to watch these games. But yeah, that was the stunner because the Ivy League at halftime of this game and the Villanova-Harvard game looked like they were the most fraudulent conference on the planet. They were getting pumped. Both teams were getting absolutely destroyed. It was 35-7 at half for Yale Youngstown State. Villanova ends up losing, I think, what was it, 52-7. It's about to Villanova, who I guess Villanova's better than I thought.
Well, I think there's still
McKinnell says, I'm telling you, when you watch, you'll understand. Tony Reno coached circles around Doug Phillips.
Maybe Tony Reno's on his way to a better job, to a bigger job before long.
I can't disagree. I feel like these Ivy League coaches have more staying power in the Ivy League because you can get paid by the Ivy League, and
you're getting the old money.
When people it's fine if you're dogging on the Ivy League, especially with some of the results we saw today. I get it, but to say they're barely better than a Pioneer League team is crazy.
No,
if you've taken a peek, I think it was our show that I threw Brown, like the worst Ivy League team. I threw their facilities up, and they would be some of the best in the Missouri Valley or the Big Sky, they are some of the best facilities in the comp. And these guys are getting some academic rides and everything else. It's not truly non-scholarship, but
I do think the one thing, and I've heard some people kind of getting on this the last week or so, is they probably do need to bump up to 11 games. I think it's a little weird to be playing 10, and I think it would help them to play another non-conference. Aside from the fact we'd all love to have a road trip out to some of these Ivy League schools, or have them come here, to home and homes one every year. Obviously Harvard was in the seeding discussion until they lost to Yale. It is a bit of it's hard to judge them when they only play the 10 games. I think it would help them in terms for building up for the playoffs. Granted, they pulled the upset today. I think it would help them to have an 11th game. I think 10s is not necessarily great.
And I'm with you. I think 11's fine. Ron says no 12 games. Why? Why 12? Because the majority of FCS plays 12 games, but one's an FBS game that doesn't get counted against them. Yeah. So really you're playing 11 games and getting a check. So I'm like, you don't get extra credit because you played an FBS school. Like, good for you. And if you win it, then I will give you credit, or you play them really tough or whatever. I'll give you some credit, but I don't have a problem with a team playing an 11 game schedule if you're not playing an FBS school, which the Ivies, I don't think will ever do. And
I don't think they're exactly hurting for money.
I think eventually they will do that, but it's the Ivy League, and they are just tectonic plates slow at moving on anything. So I'm just happy they're in the playoffs now. I'm
to get a win like that is pretty big for. We thought it might take a little bit more of an adjustment, and it certainly looked like it was going to be a few more years of adjusting after that first half, but
we don't need to rehash the old. Seth Meyer says you get credit and that'll boost your SOS. Copyright Brian Thompson. We don't need to rehash my thoughts on that.
Zach makes a good point here too. Like, some teams are playing. Obviously, we know one of the teams was
right.
Drake and Mercer, and that goes back to something I had I went back and forth with people last year when SDSU and USD got demerited for playing D2 teams. And somebody was like, well, if you just played St. Thomas, it would have been so much better for you. And I'm like, okay, A, St. Thomas is non-scholarship. B, that St. Thomas team lost to the University of Sioux Falls, a Division II team that didn't make the playoffs and was 7-4. You're telling me that is really – come on. I mean, there's different varying levels of Division I, as we know. So
right, and that's the reality, though. I understand you got to have some sort of metric, and I think you have to have that metric, because if you've seen some of the schools that some of these teams schedule, like Sol Ross, Rev, if you're still awake and listening, then maybe we do need to keep it that way. And you got teams that, I mean, there was a stretch where teams were scheduling that fake university for a while, which was crazy. I don't remember the name of them anymore. But anyways,
I've seen a few of them. Yeah, it was basically the Bishop. It was basically the
Bishop Sycamore.
Bishop Sycamore College.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and share this, though, so we can get back on track on the FCS scoreboard here before we get to the next round, because we're already an hour and 10 minutes. God bless everybody for hanging with us. We appreciate you guys.
Imagine if we do end up going into the semifinals or beyond.
Oh, my God, right? So going through here, Rhode Island hangs on against CCSU, Central Connecticut State. They pretty much got to 27 and kind of sat there and shut it down, even though I would argue 27-19 is not a good result, even if you did shut it down.
You let a team get back within a score. It's
the NEC. They don't off, like Kevin Marshall mentioned, I think when he was on the A team, they don't offer the full allotment. They have a conference rule that they can't in the NEC. So you're already fighting someone with one arm behind their back. It's kind of like facing a slightly better version of a Pioneer League school, which we'll get to that in a second. But that was a very uninspiring win to me from Rhode Island. Abilene Christian comes out and
they were up big in that game,
38-20, and they really shut it down and coasted, because they were pumping Lamar, which they're the only team to have done it this year. Congrats to them.
Lamar was kind of on the bubble, and they didn't really. They were kind of they were the team that was kind of, I think, in that last 4 in, and that didn't really go well for them today. But
right,
good season for them. They got back to the playoffs and did some good stuff.
Yeah, and then USD was tied almost until halftime, then got the lead 17-10 at half against Drake, and then they woke up and pulled away. I really think that you listen to like Coach Johansson's interviews this week. His biggest struggle was going to be convincing his team that they had to be focused for this game. And I think they weren't focused in the first half, but they were able to lock in and take care of business.
I mean, it's two parts on that. Number one, Pioneer League teams in the first round, obviously when they get to the second, because they're usually playing the number 1 seed, and then it usually is done at that point.
That's only happened twice.
I mean, they tend to play better, and they tend to play somewhat decent. Of late, they've tended to play well in the first round. Drake gave Tarleton the game for a while last year. I mean, obviously, there have been a couple of upsets back. I think it's San Diego both times made those upsets. So they tend to play above themselves for a little while if they don't pull the upset. They tend to play a little higher level. And again, you alluded to it, and you're right with Travis when he was talking at his press conference. This is a team you whipped when you weren't playing good football back in September. It's got to be a little hard. I mean, it's just human nature to think. And it's a then all the non-scholarship Pioneer League stigmas are coming in. It had to be hard to convince them, okay, you got to take this seriously, and avoid the whole, okay, we got this one. And, credit to Drake, they came out and played hard, but, eventually it's just, it's so tough for those teams to put it together. That's why you respect San Diego for the times they've done it. I think once was against Cal Poly, and the other was, God, I can't remember. It wasn't Eastern Washington. That was the regular season one, I think. But I know once was against Cal Poly, and I don't remember who the other one was. That's why you respect them for those that have been able to do it, because it's so tough for them to put a full 4 quarters together in that kind of a thing with no scholarships. And Aiden's playing well. I mean, this was a different opponent, but I mean, man, he was really good down at Southern Illinois. And I think Johansson he admitted, I asked him a question during their press conference because their offense had been so bad at times this year. We've been over that a few times. He said he admitted it was pretty important that they won that game at Southern Illinois with their offense because they were down 30-17.
Right.
It's like, going into the playoffs, we probably needed to win a game with our offense having to perform well. So I think that's a key thing for them to feel pretty good about. That, today I don't know if that's a great litmus test against Drake, but they're clicking in that Fenner. And again, we saw it with SDSU when he made the diving catch, and then I think the touchdown as well. That Fenner kid is he's got to be, I think, a candidate for first team all conference. I mean, obviously Lance is going to be right up there, but Fenner's got to be up there for first team all conference. He is ridiculous right now. And he had a one-handed touchdown in this game. He had 3 of them. I think one was one-handed.
I will say this: my only thing about this game really left is that Drake's going to have a hard time hanging on to that quarterback. I think.
Yep.
I think somebody's going to be offering him.
Was that the same?
At least a scholarship.
He
was. Yep. He's played the rest of the year,
and he was a backup, wasn't he? I mean, he
was
get
third string. Yeah. He was third string. And that kid can ball, so he's going to get picked up somewhere. Moving on, we've got Villanova 52, Harvard 7. We talked about that. That was a massacre. Really, you want to talk about if you're using results to make judgments on the committee? This one made them look really bad. So,
boy, I mean, how close was Harvard to being a? I mean, again, you can't necessarily. I know we talked about that earlier, but Harvard was really close to being a top 8 seed if they beat Yale. Maybe, and boy, I mean, it would have been interesting. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if they'd have been a top 8 had they not lost to Yale.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
right. You talk they get woodshedded, but I think you can tell Yale is better coached and a better team. North Dakota, we talked a little bit about it. They pulled away in the later part of the game to win 31-6 at Tennessee Tech. I'm impressed. I honestly picked against them in the spread. This was a 0. This was a pick'em game.
I do want to add to McKinnell's right about Joe Woodley. He's been a hell of a coach. He was at Grandview. His dad was a great coach at Grandview. That's a high rising coach. I don't know if he may get another job at a scholarship FCS but I think he'll be an FBS very soon.
Yep, he's gonna be a hot commodity. A lot of people saying that's who you and I should have hired.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah. So, anyways, and then obviously the SDSU game 41-3, off the 3 off of a doink off the upright, and then we talked Yale Youngstown State, and then the last one, Illinois State goes down to southeastern Louisiana and wins 21-3. So
farewell to Carson Camp, Jackrabbit fans.
Yep, Carson Camp
and Coyote fans
finally done. So
it's ironic too because I'm sure Jackrabbit fans say I don't think Coyote fans think too highly of him either because he kind of did not make many friends when he came back with Sac State a few years ago, despite the fact that he has one of the all-time plays in their program history. But nice rebound for him after he'd kind of been, I think this was his 6th year or whatever, but nice rebound for him. But obviously Southeast just couldn't do anything. And Illinois State, if they don't lose to Southern Illinois last week and get pummeled by them, would have probably been the 8th seed.
That's not going to work. So, yeah.
I mean, you see David. We haven't talked about how the bracket ended up being, but that was maybe the surprise. One of the big surprises was Davis moving into the 8th seed. To me, was like, I'm glad they got Tarleton to 4 because I thought they deserved to be ahead of Lehigh. But boy, Davis being the 8th seed was that
was a shocker.
I mean, like there's that graphic of the college kid pointing at himself like me, and it's like I saw that one with Davis.
Right.
So I mean, that'll be an interesting one. And again, not to harp on that Indiana State loss, but pretty clear if SDSU had just beaten Indiana State, they would have been probably at least the 8th seed.
Yeah. USD?
And SDSU. If they'd beaten Indiana State for everything that had happened, if they'd just beaten Indiana State and gone 9-3, they're the 8th seed.
Probably. Yeah, most likely. I cannot argue with that. Before we get into now what our upcoming bracket results are, we've got one more advertisement from our sponsors, Innovative Engineering Solutions. Their mechanical engineering solution services in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and surrounding states. They are licensed in South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Colorado, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska, Missouri, Mexico, Kansas, Montana, Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Illinois, Utah, Ohio, and Michigan. Founded in 2005, Innovative Engineering Solutions, LLC delivers high-performance mechanical engineering design services for both new construction and renovation projects. Based in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, they specialize in HVAC and plumbing systems designed to meet the unique needs of each client while ensuring full compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. They proudly support a diverse range of commercial clients, including multifamily housing developers, office space and retail spaces, auto dealerships, banks, churches, schools, and other commercial facilities. They don't punt on their design. Their experienced team includes licensed engineers, skilled designers, and expert CAD technicians. They utilize industry-leading tools like Revit and Train 3D Plus software to tackle designs that are not just functional, but a touchdown every time. At Innovative Engineering Solutions, client satisfaction is their top priority. They listen, they collaborate, and they deliver smart, energy-efficient systems that perform reliably for years to come. Thank you, Innovative Engineering Solutions, for being a sponsor of the Late Night Show with the Borg.
Corey, we're both awake. Give me a break.
Right, Corey. Calm down, Corey. Listen here, Mr. Mensch. But it's anyways, we've got the upcoming bracket here, and we'll start top to bottom. We'll go through. We got India at 1 p.m. NDSU, the number 1 seed, hosting Illinois State. Believe that's a rematch. I don't think they got the skip
conference rematch.
Year, so
Illinois State hung with them for 3 quarters in normal, and then the Bison pulled away. I think they won that like 33-16. Illinois State led for a little while in the first half, but yeah, it's gonna be a tough one for them to go into the Fargo Dome, obviously.
Yeah, I would not like that rematch if I'm Illinois State. Polasek with a second crack at you. That's not.
And he's saying there was so much. Man, how much different this week could have looked if he and Vegan had decided to jet off to Pac-12 pastures, but both electing to stay too.
Tate Lance, I will tell you how much is a sponsorship. Reach out to us on the JI. You're on Facebook, so shoot us a message on the JI Facebook, and Matt can get you all the details for that jazz. Other matchup in that quadrant is the 8 seed UC Davis facing Rhode Island, so not only does UC Davis get the 8 seed as kind of a gift, they get a Rhode Island team that I would argue is probably the weakest of the remaining teams. And they get them traveling across country, playing at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Talk about a gift. Like you better win that game if you're a seed. You better win that game.
Oh, of course, the last time I can think of that scenario was when Jason X Idaho Vandals lost to Albany.
Right.
And we all know how that ended up for Albany a week later in Brookings in the semifinals. But you're right. That had better be a Davis win. And of course, Davis just announced some really nice renovations to their whole athletic department. Some nice renovations coming up to their stadium. So they're going to have it's already a pretty nice facility, but it's going to get even nicer.
Yep. So, so now moving to the next quadrant, we've got the 5 seed Lehigh hosting Villanova. That's an interesting game. I am reminded of like the last 3 years, every time a team comes out and absolutely smokes whoever they were playing and goes into a game where you think that because they smoked somebody, they're going to destroy whoever they're playing, they end up losing, it feels like, almost every time. So that's going to be a really interesting game. Patriot League versus the CAA. That's going to be
one of the only 4 teams left in all of college D1 college football that's undefeated is Lehigh.
Right. Yep. 12-0 Lehigh. That's going to be a really fun one to keep an eye on. And then we got asked earlier by Tab, do you think Tarleton State can make it to the semis or the Natty? I don't remember which. I think they have a real good chance of making it to the semis with hosting. The Natty is obviously, that's a long shot. You're going to Fargo.
You probably got to go through Fargo,
and they'll have never played there before, so I'm not sure that's I wouldn't bet on that. But they get to face North Dakota at home, and I like their chances there.
Yeah, I think UND, we'll see. I think depends on what version of the F and Hawks you get. maybe Idaho. I can assure you, Jason Eck wanted to play Jimmy Rogers. I have a feeling he really wanted to play Jimmy Rogers. That even I don't care. I don't know. No matter how the game wanted to come out, I'm sure he just wanted to probably get a chance to put a touchdown or two on Jimmy, even if he lost 42-14. But no. As for the matchup, I don't know. It just depends on what UND team you get, because when they're playing good complementary football, they can hang with just about anybody. We've seen that. But if Kaminsky's getting turnover happy and he's throwing picks and he's rattled, they can get beat. I mean, it's been a kind of a bipolar team at times this year.
Here's the problem: they're on their second string quarterback, and who knows?
That's right. He got knocked out too. So I mean, do we think that's a long-term one, or is it?
I don't know. It doesn't have to be very long to affect this game. So
I was gonna say, is the backup the guy who had been the starter the year ago?
I don't remember.
So it's that dude they're really screwed. They couldn't pass at all a year ago, but we'll see.
As good as UND's defense is, I think Tarleton has a pretty good defense as well, and I don't think you want UND's defense left on the field for that long.
No. And I'm kind of curious
this offense.
I'll be curious to see. Rumfo. That's the guy who I was thinking of. Rumfo. Yeah, because he was the starter last year, and they didn't have any passing game with him. So it'll be it's just a completely different look. Yeah, again, I hadn't seen. I'd been dipping in and out of games while I was up in the press box and going on the field. But you basically don't have a vertical pass game if Ramfo's the quarterback, so that makes it even more difficult for them to have a shot. And I'm curious to see too, because Tarleton, I think, I don't think they were the attendance leader, or they were right up there with the Montana.
Well, they weren't the leader. It's always Jackson. Jackson State's always the leader.
That's true.
And
I
then
think it was Montana,
and then Tarleton. Tarleton does a little bit of USD math where it's tickets sold over butts and seats.
Well, I think they had a good crowd.
I've seen the pictures. Year. They can look me in the eye and tell me that. I've seen the pictures, fellas, and I'm just here to be a Tarleton hater, though.
I understand. I think they had a good crowd last year for the Drake game, even though that was a first round.
They do get good crowds. Like, I'm not saying they're not going to have a good.
I'll be curious to see what kind of crowd they get for a second round, their first ever second round game. And how much of a home field advantage that's going to be. I mean, it's Texas. You would think football, not quite like the SEC, but it means a little more down there. I'll just be curious as to how much a buzzsaw kind of atmosphere that is, because it certainly looks like it when it's full. It looks like it's a tough place to go play. So
beautiful stadium.
And we've seen, we saw it last year, especially when they came to USD, that offense with that. I don't know how to describe it. That slow roll of theirs is very funky.
Slow read.
Yep, that's the way to put it. It's a funky offense.
Dan Furman. My sentiments as well. I'm probably not going to throw that one up there. Now, once we get to the bottom half of the bracket, I'm going to start at the bottom because the two games here that will be most important. A, because I know you'll want to talk the Mercer game, USD, because A, it's USD, and then B, it's whoever wins that game is going to be who lines up with potentially the SDSU, sure the SDSU winner. So starting at the bottom, we got Montana State and Yale. That will be an interesting game. I'm obviously going to lean Montana State. Yeah. I truly believe they are for sure the number 2 team in the country. I know Tab asked how if I felt there was 5 national title contenders. 5 would be a really high number for a year in the FCS. There's very, very few years that you have 5 contenders. Very, very few. I dare you to go back through and find me in the last 10 years more than 4 years where there was 5 legitimate contenders. It was usually 3. However, that being said, I would say if you want a legitimate national title contender, it's probably NDSU, Montana State, and maybe Montana. I don't think Tarleton State has it to be a national title contender.
Yet, not yet.
We'll if SDSU were to make it through to the national title game, I'm probably of the opinion that they are, but that's too tough of a road to hoe in my opinion. But beyond that, yeah, I'd say probably 3 this year, which is pretty average in my opinion. I don't see Tarleton going in and upsetting NDSU to make it to the title game, so I'd say 3. But looking at this, Montana State, I think they'll pull it out against Yale, although that's going to be fun to watch just because it's Ivy League team in Bozeman, so that'll be cool. And then Stephen F. Austin versus Abilene Christian, a rematch from earlier this year where Stephen F. Austin, and then SFA controlled that game and then kind of pissed it down their legs. So I'm interested to see how that goes. Abilene Christian, to me, is such a weird dark horse because all they do is beat ranked teams. So
very true.
They lose to not
the best, shall we say?
Yeah, they're bad losses all over the place. But I say all over the place. I think they played 2 FBS schools, so they're really only 8-2 in the subdivision, and the Southern Utah loss wasn't that bad. It is just weird that they just beat ranked teams. Their ultimate play up to their competition. Yeah, Stephen A. Austin. As the NCAA account called them, which was hilarious.
Jack's solidarity, though, right?
We are Jack solidarity all the way. Our friend the Rev was the guy in the bunny suit down at Nashville both times, and he's a Stephen F. Austin fan.
And hey, everybody now, including Northern Arizona, they all have the same script Jacks. Although, shout out to SDSU, they brought the White Rabbit back.
Yes, they brought the White Rabbit back.
Although I will say I would kind of like to see the original SD. I think Zimmer called it the waffle. Yeah, you called it that. I would like to see that make a return because it is the historic one, or
it is classic.
But the White Rabbit is your best one, and you probably won your. I can't remember if they wore that during the semifinal loss last year. Maybe they did.
I don't remember what they wore in that.
But I think if they didn't wear it during the semifinal one, they've never lost a playoff game in it. So.
Right.
I'm just saying, go with what works.
Right.
It also looks fly. And it's the mini helmet I have back here. So, go with it. It's the best helmet you have. Shout out.
It is the best helmet. I do like the blue lids with some regularity. I like keeping the white helmet special. That's just me. I like keeping it special where it's not all the time.
Yeah, but I think it's good for the playoff. Like I said, I have to. That's going to bug me now, so I'm going to look it up while you go over the rest of the bracket because I got to see if they. I can't remember if they had that. I don't want to be quite like Dom, who gets super into that, and like they've never lost with the Bison. Have never lost with the Harvest helmet. I think they got their. I can't remember if they wore that thing when the Jacks.
If I remember right, they did not wear it.
I don't think they did. No,
game, but I think they were on. They've lost in it. I think once.
Yeah, but Go. Keep with your superstitions as long as you have them.
Yeah. So, after that, after the SFA Abilene Christian game, which should be a really fun one. Again, they have stacked all these games between the time of noon to 2 p.m., which is just it's so frustrating. These 2 weekends were my favorite weekends in the world to sit and just watch these games all day, and for no reason at all. They have ruined that, and it just is gross. But we've got number 6.
The FBS playoff isn't happening either. It's like
it's ESPN Plus. All these games except for one are in ESPN Plus. You don't have any time slots to fill. There's no reason you can't stagger these games. You could stagger these games with having some on the East Coast all the way out to the West Coast, and stagger these games from 11 a.m. start time until 7 p.m. start time, or 9 p.m. for your ESPN2 game, and stagger them all the way across, and it'd be really fun and it'd be really cool. You could have a full day of it, but whatever. And like Ron says, FYI, they don't care, and that's just the fact of it.
Yeah.
They don't care. So anyways, we got number 6 Mercer hosting South Dakota USD. Going down to Georgia to face a white-hot Mercer team that has been outside of playing an SEC team.
Yeah.
Since they switched their quarterbacks to the freshman that's playing for him now, who has been a monster.
Yep,
You,
that would
you know,
be
you think Drake's quarterback was good. They're
that would be
the cat they got now.
Braden Atkinson is thrown for just under 3,500 yards, 34 touchdowns, 7 picks. He's completing 68% of his passes. So that is
and he didn't start till like the third or fourth game.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely 10 games. They went with a couple other guys, but yeah, I mean it's definitely a different look from what you're used to seeing in the Valley, because it's going to be more of a pat. Although they do have some decent running backs. So they got a back who's got 852 yards, who's their primary guy. But it's probably unlike the Valley, which you're getting more of a. It's the fun of the playoffs. You see the contrasting styles. You get a team that's probably going to pass the football more, and I'm going to be curious to see how they hold up against that. It could be the Jerry Rice award-winning QB.
He should be.
Hard to argue against that. Yeah.
Oh my.
In limited
God.
time too, because he, like you said, didn't get in. And I think I mean, as you mentioned, they're pretty. Which again, that's the bread and butter for USD right now. Although Bauman's really coming on, and you figure this is kind of legacy time for him. They got a good rush defense.
Yep, they've got a salty rush defense, and that is the number one way to slow down USD's defense or offensive attack. Now, Phillips is that good of a running back.
Yeah,
so
he is really
that. I would not be surprised to see USD win this game, but I would pick Mercer in general to win this game because they're at home. And if this was in the Dakota Dome, that's a different story. But I would pick Mercer to win this game. Gilby agrees with me, says Mercer by 10. It'll be interesting to watch because I know
imperative they get off to a good start. I mean, although they did get the rally on the road at Southern Illinois, you don't.
Yeah,
but I don't.
Mercer's a different animal than SIU.
Yeah,
they have a defense.
Yeah, just imperative you get off to a good start on the road in a place you're not familiar with. And they've played a number of close games this year against teams that were. I mean, I think the only games they really haven't been close with were obviously Iowa State and NDSU. But I thought they played a lot of one-score games this year. So, I think you just want to be, and it'll be interesting to see if they can run the football and break that run defense. Then you really like their chances. And again, Bauman's playing really. This is the best we've seen Bauman play all. This might be the best we've seen Bauman play in his career there. Going back to that SDSU game. So, they're going to need big games from those guys, but it'll be, kind of interested to see what the conditions will be like down there. If it's a nice sunny day, are we going to see some aerial fireworks, or could we see some rain? It'll be interesting. I'm just kind of curious. Like I said, that's going to be a fun one to kind of keep an eye on, just because again, the setting down there is so picturesque. I mean, Washington Grizzlies, beautiful. Southern and Macon, Georgia is pretty cool, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference. Those Southern football stadiums in the SoCon, all in general, are gorgeous.
I'm curious to see what kind of crowd they're going to get for this too. I mean, that's really.
Whether you go, there's they've got a big affinity for brick down there in their stadiums, and it's really cool.
Really cool.
If you've ever seen App State's stadium back when they were in the SoCon, just gorgeous. Georgia Southern's is beautiful. The SoCons is kind of cool if they ever the Citadels is pretty cool if they would ever keep the get the visitor side done or whatever. Just kind of it's just an aesthetic that it seems like all those schools down there have. Anyways, so that game will be interesting.
And another thing that might not help USD a little bit is it'll be for by our time clock, that's an 11 a.m. start.
Right.
So you're talking about a longer trip. I'm guessing they'll get out there Friday, and you have to start earlier. Yeah. I mean, it's a little earlier wake up call than you're used to. Sometimes those things matter. Sometimes they don't. We'll see.
Oh man. This inside joke. Incredible. Well done, Chad. Anyways, the last one in Missoula, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Central, SDSU at Montana. Oh baby. This is this looks like it could be a good one.
Time to perform an exorcism.
Yeah. eventually it's got to happen.
You've been saying that about the Fargo Dome for a while in the playoffs.
Right. And that hasn't happened yet. A little bit of a different animal, Montana. No offense, Montana fans. A little bit of a different animal. NDSU versus.
One
Montana.
animal they've wrestled with a lot more, and one animal they just wrestle with every couple of years, and it seems
and there's the rivalry factor and everything else.
Well, but this is kind of becoming. Obviously,
I'd say Montana State more because there's been a lot more matchups.
Well, they're actually starting to match up now more with Montana because now they beat. I tell you who's going to consider this a rivalry, and we know good old Bobby Hawk. He's going to be doing his usual tricks because they've lost. They've been bounced from the playoffs 2 years in a row and not in close games. Other than that first half of the FCS title game 2 years ago, it's interesting because it's how God, you think back to that national title game, and we went into that game kind of saying, "Oh, Montana, they've never beaten Montana. This is kind of the last." But I think we all kind of knew how that was gonna go. And then last year, we still kind of felt like, this Montana team's not that good, and it turned out to be a blowout. And you knew getting him in Brookings for the first time was something first time since like 1950 or whatever it was pretty cool. So now it's like the shoe is completely on the other foot of SDSU's never beaten this program. They got to get over this hump. They did.
Yep.
But they just haven't done it in Missoula. And now it's Montana who's like, we need to beat, they still need to get over the ultimate hump of beating they still got to get over Montana State, who they've lost two times in a row. And then they'd have to likely get over North Dakota State. But South Dakota State represents a pretty big challenge. Other than what we just saw today from Chase Mason, that's a pretty big hill for them to climb now all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think Montana players, for SDSU fans, this will be a vengeance game of sorts because of the house of horrors that Missoula's been and Wagra's Stadium. However, I will also say that it'll be a bigger vengeance game for Montana players because this crop of SDSU players only knows beating Montana. So I would say there's going to be some vengeance on the roster for Montana, especially with guys like Gilman and Ayat and those guys where I think you might want to understand that going in as the Jacks, that this isn't, they're going to have a little bit extra motivation after having their season ended twice.
You don't necessarily, more of those guys who played with on Montana's roster have played in either last year's or the championship game, and there just aren't that many on SDSU's right now. I don't know that there would have been even if what happened last year with the transition and the turnover. There would have been a lot of turnover anyway. But
right,
it's kind of interesting that the last couple of years Montana has been trying to find a solution at quarterback through the transfer portal, and they've kind of found it this year with Ayat. He was the legacy guy. His dad was the quarterback of their first ever national championship team, and boy, you saw him a couple of years ago, and you're like, this just looks like it looks like just that. He's the legacy guy who's just getting out there because his daddy was the quarterback. But he's really now he did have kind of a rough game against Montana State, and that's going to linger unless they get another shot at the Bobcats in the semifinals. But 25 touchdown. I've got the stats obviously pulled up right now. He's thrown. It's very similar to that Mercer quarterback I just mentioned. Over almost 3,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 picks, nearly 69% nice completion percentage. I had to get that in there. Come on. I
appreciate it.
Now, he did throw a pick 6 last week that was pretty key in kind of flipping the momentum of that game. So,
he is susceptible to turnovers.
Yeah, it's always a little difficult to tell. This was not a great year for the Big Sky. Let's just call a spade a spade. It was very top heavy. Davis was a decent third team, but I don't think they were really going to take down Montana or Montana State. They played Montana State kind of decently, but I don't think this Davis team was to the level they won a year ago. So, yeah, thanks, Daniel. I don't get the whole 6-7 thing, but I'll just Google that and figure that out later.
The
kids thing, I don't want to get into it right now.
There's no figuring it out. That's what it is. I'm telling you, Everyone's like, what does it mean? It means it's something that kids just love to do because they think it's funny. It doesn't have to mean anything.
I work. There's another job I work where a guy has 6767 as his password. And he's an older guy who's like in his 60s and he doesn't get it. And I'm like, I'm leaving it at that, and I'm leaving it there. But yeah, I think last week we did our special with Kevin. He's like, you could tell they were. Now they do have, I think, like 18 interceptions. I gotta double check this here as I'm looking at their team stats, but it's interesting because I think they have like 18 interceptions as a team. But Kevin was saying you looked at it last week and you watched that game. They did seem like they were a little susceptible, maybe, to the pass, and obviously SDSU's passing game all of a sudden looks a little bit more potent. No disrespect to Jack Henry, but obviously Chase Mason's a bit different dude back there. It's a different threat. And yeah, they're a little susceptible to the runs. So we'll see. I mean, it's a different dynamic. And again, I think Jack played as well as he could, and he certainly got them to win at North Dakota. But yeah, I mean, I know there are people. I know some people out in Montana. I don't have as many as I knew back when I worked there, but I've already heard from some people out there like, yeah, they're not thrilled about this. I mean, Bobby will do his thing, and the players are going to play whoever they want, but the fans are not.
I guarantee you Bobby gripes about it in a press conference this week.
Oh, Bobby will gripe about everything.
They shouldn't be a 14 seed, and we shouldn't be blah, 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 blah. I can hear it already. Bobby will be mad.
I will say I did enjoy him a lot more at the championship game a few years ago. I didn't know him as much as Prime, the first run.
Yep.
Excuse me, I got a wrong pipe on the drink there, but I didn't know him. I got to Montana in 2010, which is right after he had left for UNLV, and that really went well for them, by the way. For him, great career move, going to Unlove, but
right.
Yeah, most coaches go to die. A few of it's gotten better for him of late, but he definitely he was and some of it's in. Although I've heard some other things off the record from other people around the SDSU program that there still is not a whole lot of love lost for the man. So leave it at that.
Surprised.
So
yeah, well, I mean, that is something to take into account too. You've got Dan Jackson running the show, who has very recent experience with being in Wagriz and coaching against Bobby Houck and his offensive schemes, which is something of a little bit of an ace in the hole. I think, you don't, how many times do you have that in your back pocket for a playoff game where you've got a coaching staff who has some intimate knowledge and you don't have to call because you're talking to the defensive coordinator who played him and beat them, by the way, with Idaho, and shut them down. So that is an interesting thing to keep in mind going into this one.
Once again, shout out Jason Eck for getting the 9 wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shout out to Eck. Good for them. But the other thing, the funny thing with this game, you remember Marty Morningwig, the old NFL coach?
I know he's a Montana guy.
He's their color commentator for their TV broadcast. So if you want to interview, I think he'd be an interesting one.
Yeah, no, because I know, and I think the guys who do their TV are some guys I used to work with in Montana. They had worked at the NBC and then they moved over to ABC Montana, who I think does it now or something like that. Yeah,
yeah. So guy who was Brett Favre's quarterback coach in the Super Bowl and coached the Lions, and then ended up being the offensive coordinator for Lamar Jackson at the Ravens and everywhere in between. It's just a name that's stuck in my head forever watching the NFL.
By the way, the guy who's mentioning I don't know if this is true. The guy who's mentioning that Bobby's mad Montana State's AD was on the committee. Montana State's AD is Leon Costello, the who's formerly with the Jackrabbits athlete. So if you really want to get into the conspiracy,
you want more conspiracy?
Out there.
He was the rep for the NCAA at this game for the Jacks this week. So he was in Brookings as the
rep. I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean,
bit of a homecoming for him.
I think the one thing I'm maybe a little worried about with SDSU, and again, like you said, Yacht can be somewhat turnover prone, but man, they've got some good receivers. I mean, Michael Wortham he's a pretty tough. Again, we've talked. The secondary didn't have too much to deal with today. Even though New Hampshire's had a history of some pretty good quarterbacks coming through there, but Wortham's going to be a handful, I think. I mean, it's going to be a test for this because they've had, over the last couple of weeks, they've had issues in the secondary. And again, the linebacker core, we'll see what that looks like next week. Obviously, they played pretty well today, but this is a step up. This is a big step up from New Hampshire. Wortham has
Massive.
58 grabs, 825 yards, 7 touchdowns. And it's not just, I mean, those numbers don't really tell the whole story. I mean, he's a handful. They've got some good receivers. I mean, obviously, we think a few years ago, I keep forgetting the guys. Who was the returner they had that I can't remember his
Mark
name.
Mariani.
No. The recent one.
Yes. God, why am I having a brain fart on him and that defensive tackle they had were both studs. Ron knows. Ron, who was the cat? Who was their great receiver?
He was their only threat in that
Junior
game.
Bergen.
Bergen.
Thank you. Right. Thanks, Tab. Bob. I'll call you Bob from now on. Thanks, Bob.
And of course, I'm trying to visit Montana's website to get some of this, and it's all down on.
God, he was a beast. That kid was a problem.
But man, I mean, how good was, again, just to look back at it, how good was Hunter Dustman in that title game? I mean, he gave Bergen nothing to return, and that title game was close in the first half. Montana had several chances. I remember Mark threw one of his worst passes as a jackrabbit that got picked off. And there were they punted several times, and there were several times that Montana could have had really, really good field position. And I mean, they did a lot of good coughing. I mean, when I was still at Dakota News, I did my Athlete of the Week segment on Dustman because he was so freaking good in that game.
Yes.
And
deserved.
I don't think his season was bad that year, but it was definitely a legitimate worry. Like, how are you going to, that was the one thing you thought if Montana was going to pull that upset.
Ooh.
Junior Bergen was going to do a bunch of crazy stuff.
Yeah, no, and you know what? It's a Bobby Houck team. They're going to be good at special teams, and you better not let it beat you.
Well, and that's another concern with this team because today they didn't have anything. It's been iffy at times this year. Although I will say, shout out once again. I hope this continues with Eli Stater. I mean, I think if you want to talk about one of the bright spots,
about a redemption story this season.
Yes, he has been in not great conditions today. Like the one extra point, I don't believe that was his fault. I think it got fumbled or something. It wasn't like he.
Yeah, no.
It wasn't like he shanked it. It was, he has been nails and hit some big. He had a good kick down at USD. He's been really good, and he's a guy who, this is what they brought him in for. We're kind of forgetting that he had some big kicks at the NAIA level with Northwestern when they were in the playoffs to win them games. We'll see if that comes into play here because he's, you hope he's certainly had a big redemption story, but the way this is going, it could come down to a field goal or something like that in some of these games for them to win, especially on the road. And, this is a, big time, it was at Santana Moss. I just saw the U the other night back again on we start, as we wrap this up, we talked about how good that ESPN production was. Like, I think one of their best 30 for 30s, and it was the U, and both of those U productions on Miami, and it was the old clip of Santana Moss after they beat Florida State. Big time players step up in big time games. Well, all the kicker has to do is kick a field goal, but as Florida State proved in that rivalry with the wide rights all the time, it's easier said than done.
Right. Yeah, that's a fact. Man, this is gonna be a fun game. As an SDSU fan, I have concerns. Like you talked about how good those receivers are, and how are the corners going to hold up there? Can you get home on Ayat?
They've got some big ones too. They got a couple. They got a 6'4", a 6'3", a 6'1", another 6'3".
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how many of these guys are regular in their rotation. A 6'1". They've got size at wide receiver too. They got the one I mentioned is a 5'9" guy, so he's maybe more your slot dude, but they're not. It's a challenge. It would definitely help if some of the linebackers. It would help if some of the linebackers who were out today could come back, but we'll see. We'll see.
Oh, poor Montana State fans are mad about that game still. And you know what? All the Montana State fans that are mad about that game and love to say, well, we were the ones who were closest, whatever. I think at say last week about the third quarter of the SDSU versus UND game, you might have argued that teams are slightly different at the end of the year than they are at the beginning of the year. I think that would have been a pretty heavy argument made. So maybe let's just go with that.
I'm still mad about that stupid play at the back of the end zone. And
yes, that's what he's talking about. That's exactly what he's talking about.
You couldn't kick a damn extra point against the Bison. Don't give me this. You had no kicker. I don't want to hear how you guys could have done this or that. Good Lord. You lost because a backup offensive lineman on North Dakota State blocked an extra point. And this isn't the NFL extra point where they stick it back at like the 30.
Right.
This was a freaking chip shot. Like this, and this wasn't Blair Walsh shanking the damn thing in 40-degree below weather. You let a backup offensive line, and they missed. I think they missed a couple of kicks. That had been a problem for them that whole year. That's why they had sunk down to being the whatever it was, like the ace. They were the lower end of the top 8 seeds. They should have been a, that was a team that probably should have been a 2, 3, or a 4 seed, and instead they sunk to the bottom half. So you had no kicker. That's going to eventually come back to bite you in the arse. And it bit you in the arse in the form of a giant offensive lineman's forearm. So I don't want to hear about how great that team was or how bad that call was. Just deal with it. That was far from your worst loss that year.
Right.
Or bitch about the field conditions the year before. That was the other one I remember.
That one was wild.
I brought up that Montana State game a lot because today reminded me a little of that. It was cold. It was I'm like, are they still going on about how they intentionally froze the field the night? They intentionally let the field freeze the night before.
Right. That conspiracy theory is hilarious.
And by the way, this was like the week after you guys had played William and Mary, the William and Mary team that had never probably played in the cold. And you're
sliding into their walls after touchdowns.
And you're whining, oh, we can't play in the cold. You're in Montana State. What the fuck?
Yeah, that was so weird. I was so baffled when that became a thing. But
I mean, my God, it's like it'd be one thing if you were William and Mary who had to come into that. You're Montana. They didn't even have an indoor practice facility at that point. You're telling me you've never practiced in bad weather? Or I've seen videos of them posting, we're so tough. We're Montana tough. We practice in the snow and the blizzards. And I guess they forgot how to play on bad footing. And didn't really bother SDSU. You think it was the bad footing? You think SDSU ran so well? They ran for 250 yards in that footing. What?
Right.
And you were the best rushing team in the country, I think, going into that game. That was just good, Lord.
Yeah,
it's funny.
No, Montana State. I understand their frustration because God, it's got to feel like every time something goes wrong
close,
that you feel like you should have won the game, and something goes wrong and you don't. So I understand the frustration. Yeah. I'm gonna make fun of it. When you do ridiculous.
Don't make a lame excuse like that. Don't give me the field position. Don't give me the field conditions. Don't give me in week 2 of the season.
Here's a bone I'll throw Montana State fans. You talk about that year you almost beat us in the season opener. Or maybe it was the second game of the season.
Second game, yeah.
Boy, that feels a little familiar to this season. Instead of barely winning, you barely lost to us again, but that was at home. And you've gone on a tear since. You're the 2 seed. You got a chance to write a story the way SDSU did. It's all in your lap right now. You can do it. So
and you don't it's an easier draw too. You don't have to face one of the potential Walter Payton winners because they crap the bed today.
Right.
I mean, you've got the easy. You have got the easy. I mean, I can't remember who they would play. How's the bracket go? Who would they play if they beat Yale next week?
If they beat Yale, they'd play Stephen F. Austin or Abilene Christian, which I wouldn't call it a cakewalk, but
you're getting gee, wait a minute.
This quadrant of this half of the bracket is by far the most difficult of the two. And I get in NDSU's the 1 seed, it should be the easier side. I get it, but holy crap. Would you rather face Tarleton, Lehigh, and Davis or Montana, Mercer, and Abilene Christian, Stephen F. Austin? Oh, by the way, they threw SDSU in there as well.
But gee, wait a minute! Didn't I just mention something about that William and Mary team that it never played in like cold weather before, and suddenly they go up to Bozeman? Oh gee, a Texas team having to come and play potentially in Bozeman when it could be 0 degrees, and gee, that seems kind of familiar. So that probably is going to go well for you got the cakewalk to the semifinals unless you spit the bits. So you should be pretty well set up to play, whether it's the Grizz, the Jacks, the Coyotes, Mercer, whoever. You should be, if you don't get to the semifinals with this path laid to you, something went catastrophically wrong.
Yep, that's a fact. Well, folks, we are coming up on 2 hours here. So I think that is a good way to end it. I think we're getting into we're just going to rant on random stuff for the next hour if we keep going. So I think it's a good time to call her quits. Borg, thanks for doing this again all season. Hopefully we get to do another 2 of these. 2, 3, 4 maybe. Yeah. Well, we got 1 more for sure. Hopefully it's at least 2 and we go from there, because only thing that matters anymore is win the next week. It's the new season, fresh season, and they're 1-0 in this season. Let's keep it going.
I'm manifesting right now. You know me, I'm always rooting for 605 teams. So I look forward to being back here next week talking State U round 2, the first ever State U playoff game. I'm ready for it. So I don't know how we're going to get there, but we are going to get there. Fingers crossed. Or maybe it'll be SDSU heading down to Macon, Georgia. That would be fun too, but be a little more fun to have be a little more fun to where we could actually go to the game without having to spend a fortune to get down to Georgia. I do know, by the way, Matt Zimmer's heading out to Missoula next week, so he'll have plenty of coverage.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be crushed to have to go to Macon, Georgia in December.
Well, I will say this: none of us really like flying. I think he's got to fly out to Missoula, so I'm pretty sure he would have to fly to Macon. That's a lot of airline travel.
Macon, he'd have to. Yep.
And airline travel sucks. I mean, I would love to drive. Yeah. I would love to drive to Macon, but Missoula's about a 2-day trip regardless. So, but yeah, I mean, it would definitely be easier for all of us. I mean, hell, you could probably get. I mean, I'm sure the Dome would be. I'd like to think the Dakota Dome would be sold out for a quarterfinal.
I would be very curious to see what the ratio would be in that game.
Yeah, I mean, but either way, it would be a little more. It'd be a little easier for all the fan bases to attend a game in South. That's why I'm saying I hope today was not the last day of college football. A day a college football game is played in this state, and we'll see. I don't know. Next week they got to do. Jack's got it. I think they got the harder of the two, going to the beast. That is Washington Grizzly, but it's time to exercise some demons next week.
Yep, should be fun game. Excited for it. May the best team win. And with that, thank you everybody. Go big, go blue, and go Jack.